If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all 3 books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. So by this point, we have not only gotten confirmation that the Jet Jaguar design, which popped up not too long ago, is 100% real, but we also got our official first full-body look at Godzilla as he will appear in Godzilla Singular Point. Up until now, we've only really gotten a clear look at him from the shoulders up, and in silhouette form from like mid-torso up. But this is our first clear look at what Godzilla will look like as a whole. From head to tail, the whole picture, full detail. And, well, obviously it looks like Godzilla, but what about the finer details? One significant difference that stands out is the texture of his skin, as opposed to previous versions of Godzilla, which have had sort of a grooved appearance, originally based on the first suit's design, which was modeled after keloid scarring from radiation exposure. This Godzilla has somewhat smoother, but still obviously scaly skin, patterned in a way that kind of looks like the shingles of a house almost. How there are like layers growing out from beneath other layers is the best way I can think to describe it at the moment. It's a different sort of look, though still keeping with the idea of Godzilla having an irregular, unusual skin pattern for a reptile. We can also see that his dorsal fins have quite possibly the most literal interpretation of the maple leaf design, by actually have veins running up into them and towards the points. It actually kind of reminds me of that one piece of alleged concept art from Godzilla, the Polygon Trilogy Godzilla, where it was eventually proven to be fake, but we actually saw that particular element in the spines. So, it's certainly different. Usually Godzilla's spines are either a very solid, kind of metallic-looking color, or they have a gradient of going from darker to lighter at the edges with no sort of other detail other than maybe texturing to make them look kind of rough. So again, different interpretation, but still recognizable. Curiously, this design sees the return of the 3-toed foot, which we haven't seen since the Showa period. And the 4th toe has been rearranged into a dew claw, kinda similar to what you might have seen from the 1998 Godzilla, though obviously not in the same place. It's jutting out of what I will simply refer to as the heel, as opposed to being like a vestigial toe on the side. Then of course we have Godzilla's arms, and I'm gonna say that just in this neutral resting position, his arms look broken almost. It's like the skeleton suddenly reverses at the elbow and then goes forward again. It's weird to look at, and for some reason it's just not looking right to me. Maybe it'll make more sense when we see it in motion, but that's one of the weirder details. But then, of course, we have the proportions. As I'm sure you've noticed, this Godzilla is perhaps the most bottom-heavy Godzilla ever. Now, Godzilla has frequently been portrayed as having thunder thighs, make no mistake of that. The idea that only the legendary Godzilla is fat is something I don't even understand the origin of, because Godzilla has always been kind of on the chunky side. It makes sense. Reptiles that are large tend to be much heavier. Plus, you come from Japan, you have sumo wrestlers. That was probably a major inspiration, especially when we got into King Kong vs. Godzilla, which was the first truly fat Godzilla, if you ask me. But as far as the proportions of this one go, it's almost to a point where it doesn't look properly proportioned. This Godzilla has tremendous legs and a gigantic tail, and then suddenly above his waist he gets really narrow all of a sudden, and his upper body is much smaller proportionally than his lower body. And again, Godzilla has been designed before to sort of have that pear shape where he gets narrower at the top, but this is the most extreme I've ever seen that. And I'm not entirely sure that was the best design choice. But of course that proportioning isn't nearly as bad as the proportions done for Jet Jaguar. Again, we have had it confirmed that this is real, and this design just does not sit well with me at all. And no, it's not the aesthetic. I don't mind that they turned him from a sleek, futuristic-looking superhero into a more rickety-looking Tesla punk robot. That I'm okay with. What doesn't sit well with me about Jet's design is the fact that he is so disproportionate. He's really huge on top, really narrow waist, ridiculously long arms, and these stubbiest legs I have ever seen. It doesn't look right to me. And of course, it has been pointed out that it's probably inspired by Studio Ghibli films like Castle in the Sky. We have one of the designers from that movie working on Godzilla Singular Point, and people often point to the image of this robot from Castle in the Sky as a possible inspiration for Jet Jaguar. Maybe that's the case, but if you put the two side by side, I think you can see the difference. The robot from Castle in the Sky, it is well proportioned. It doesn't have normal proportions. It's got longer arms than legs. It is also bigger at the top than it is at the waist. But at the same time, the arm to leg to body ratio looks balanced. It's sort of gorilloid in a way, if a gorilla were standing upright like King Kong, but it doesn't look like it's inconsistent. It looks natural in a way, as opposed to Jet Jaguar, who has shoulders that stretch out far wider than they ought to, on a waist so narrow that I feel like it might snap in half if I give it a stern glare. I cannot picture this robot moving in a way that looks cool. As opposed to the original Jet Jaguar, whose human proportions could allow him to take long strides as he charged at Megalon, this one, you remember how Marvin the Martian walks, where he has his legs moving really fast as he's shuffling along? I cannot picture this Jet Jaguar moving in any way that doesn't resemble that. And if this series were meant to be a zany screwball comedy satire like Excel Saga, maybe I could get behind that because it would be the joke, but as far as I've seen, Singular Point is a show we're meant to be taking seriously. It's maybe not meant to be as deathly serious as the Polygon trilogy, but it's still not meant to be a comedy or a parody. So what is with these proportions? It's kind of weird. And of course other people have been saying that Jet Jaguar may not actually have this be his final design. He could always be upgraded because he's a machine, and maybe he'll get destroyed at some point and come back with a bottom half that more properly matches his top half. Maybe. But you can't say that same possibility might exist for Godzilla. His top half is going to remain that narrow unless they do another Shin Godzilla Evolution style thing, which I doubt they're gonna do. So otherwise, he's stuck that way. All the monsters have been drastically redesigned, I realize, and I'm okay with the designs at this point, except for the proportions. The proportions for Jet Jaguar and Godzilla especially, I don't know, that leaves me wondering why they decided to have the differences in body parts be so extreme. I of course reserve full judgment until I see it all in motion, but thinking of what we've seen so far, we've seen Jet Jaguar in motion, and while he is certainly a mobile robot, thinking about it, we've only really seen him from the waist up. So I think we should probably get used to seeing him only from the waist up, because I have a feeling if we see him in his entirety in battle, that's gonna completely break the illusion that he is a cool robot. And as for Godzilla, what little we've seen of him in the trailers, well, I should say trailer because he didn't appear at all in the second one, but what little we did see of him, he was barely moving. And the last few times we've gotten trailers that showed Godzilla barely moving, they turned out to be very accurate to the overall experience. So, I'm bracing myself. We already know that there are monsters in this series that are going to be more active and more alive than we've seen in the last anime adaptation. But will Godzilla be among them? That's my question. But either way, we now know what the monsters look like. The general aesthetics I'm still okay with at the moment. It's the proportions right now that are throwing me. Hopefully it looks better in motion. Only time will tell. I say that a lot, don't I? Well, that's because it's true.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.